In a world obsessed with speed and perfection, where silence was often mistaken for weakness, there stood a bustling city named Aethelgard. In this city lived a man named Kael. Kael was the definition of success. He was a master architect, a man whose hands had designed the tallest spires that pierced the clouds and the strongest bridges that spanned raging rivers. People looked at Kael with envy. They saw his golden trophies, his velvet robes, and his grand estate, and they thought, surely, this man has everything. And indeed, Kyle had conquered the world outside, but inside, he was losing a war that no one else could see. Every evening, when the applause of the crowd faded and the lights of the city dimmed, Kyle would sit alone in his vast, empty hall. A strange coldness would settle in his chest, a hollowness that no amount of gold could fill. It was as if he were climbing an infinite ladder, but the higher he climbed, the harder it became to breathe. He had won the game of life, yet he felt like a loser in his own soul. He asked himself, why do I feel so empty when my hands are so full? Unable to bear the silent torture of his own mind any longer, Kyle decided to leave everything behind. He had heard whispers of a wise hermit named Elder Silas, who lived high up in the Misty Peaks. Legend said that Silas did not possess magic, but he held the maps to lost souls. The journey to the Misty Peaks was unforgiving. Kyle traded his fine silk clothes for a simple traveler's cloak. He climbed through dense forests where sunlight struggled to touch the ground and scrambled over sharp rocks that cut his hands. Yet, strangely, the physical pain felt better than the numbness in his heart. After days of climbing, he finally found a humble wooden hut perched on the edge of a cliff. There, sitting calmly by a small fire, was Elder Silas. He looked nothing like a grand master. He was just a frail old man, with eyes that held the depth of the ocean, and a smile as gentle as the morning breeze. Cal fell to his knees, his voice trembling with exhaustion and desperation. Elder Silas, he pleaded, I have built empires. I have achieved what others only dream of. But I am hollow. I feel useless. Please tell me, where is the missing piece of my life? Silas looked at Cal, his gaze piercing through the young man's defenses. He didn't offer a philosophical riddle. Instead, he stood up slowly, walked to the corner of his garden, and picked up an old, battered wooden bucket. I hear your pain, Kyle, Silas said softly. I will help you find your answer, but wisdom requires patience. He pointed to the valley below. Do you see the stream down at the foot of the mountain? Your task is simple. Take this bucket, go down to the stream, fill it with water, and bring it back to fill my water tank. Do this every morning for 7 days. Kyle looked at the bucket. It was old, covered in moss, and worst of all, it had a large, visible crack running down its side. Kyle frowned. He wanted to question the logic of using a broken tool, but the serene authority in Silas's eyes silenced him. He took the bucket and nodded. The next morning, Kyle began his task. He walked down the steep path, dipped the bucket into the icy stream, and filled it to the brim. Being a man of efficiency, Kyle walked fast, intending to complete the task perfectly. But he quickly realized the problem. As he walked, water gushed out from the crack in the bucket. It splashed onto his boots and soaked into the dry, dusty earth of the mountain path. By the time he reached Silas's hut, the bucket was only half full. Cal felt a sting of shame. He was a perfectionist. He was used to delivering 100% results. Bringing a half-empty bucket felt like an insult to his abilities. The second day came, and Cal tried a different strategy. He walked carefully, trying to balance the bucket to minimize the spill, but the crack was unforgiving. The water still leaked. The third day, he tried running, hoping to beat the leak with speed. He arrived out of breath, his lungs burning, but the bucket was still half empty. By the fifth day, shame turned into anger. Kael looked at the bucket with resentment. Why does the old man make me do this? He thought. Is he mocking me? Is he trying to show me that I am incompetent? He felt like Sisyphus, cursed to roll a boulder up a hill, only to watch it roll back down. He felt his efforts were being wasted, drop by drop, into the dust. Finally, amid the seventh day arrived, Kael trudged up the mountain path. For the last time, his spirit was crushed. He poured the remaining water into the tank, which was still far from full, and dropped the bucket on the ground with a heavy thud. He couldn't look Silas in the eye. "Elder," Kael whispered, his voice thick with defeat, "I have failed you. I am supposed to be a genius, a man of capability. Yet, I cannot even carry water. This bucket is broken, and perhaps I am broken too. I have wasted your time and my energy for a week, achieving nothing." Silence hung in the air, heavier than the mountain mist. Then, Kael felt a hand on his shoulder. It was light, warm, and reassuring. "Kael, look up," Silas said gently. "You say you have wasted your energy? You say the bucket is useless? Turn around. Look at the path you have walked for the past 7 days." Reluctantly, Kael turned around. He squinted his eyes against the morning sun, looking down the winding path that led to the stream. And then, he gasped. The side of the path where he had carried the leaking bucket, the right side, was transformed. What was once dry, brown, dusty earth was now a riot of color. Wildflowers had bloomed in an explosion of purple, gold, and crimson. Patches of fresh green grass danced in the wind. Butterflies were fluttering from petal to petal, and the air was filled with a sweet, earthy fragrance. The other side of the path, where no water had spilled, remained dry, barren, and lifeless. Kael stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Silas stood beside him, smiling that gentle smile. "You see, Kael," the old man explained, "I knew about the crack in the bucket from the very beginning, but instead of throwing it away or trying to fix it, decided to use its flaw. I planted flower seeds along the side of the path, and every day, while you were busy judging yourself for failing, you were unknowingly watering them." Silas picked up the broken bucket and held it like a treasure. "If this bucket were perfect, if it had no cracks, you would have brought more water to the tank. Yes, but this beautiful garden would never exist. There would be no color, no life, no fragrance to comfort the weary travelers who climb this mountain." He looked deep into Kael's eyes. "My son, you suffer because you are obsessed with the full tank, the perfect result. You think happiness is a destination, but life does not work that way. We are all like this cracked bucket. We all have flaws, but it is through these very cracks that our humanity leaks out. Success is not about how much you keep for yourself at the end of the journey. It is about what you leave behind on the path." Tears streamed down Kael's face. For the first time in years, the emptiness in his chest vanished. It was filled not with pride, but with peace. Moral of the story. This story is a gentle reminder for all of us who are chasing the illusion of perfection. Firstly, embrace your flaws. In our modern world, we hide our cracks because we fear judgment. But our cracks are where the light enters. A perfect person is admirable, but a real person with scars and stories is lovable. Secondly, value the journey. Don't measure your life only by what you accumulate. Measure it by the flowers you grow along the way. Who did you help? Who did you make smile? Vocabulary lesson. Now, help you understand this story deeply. Let's learn 4 powerful words we use today. Listen closely and repeat after me. Number 1, obsessed. Spelling obsessed. Obsessed means to think about something constantly, so much that you cannot think of anything else. In the story we said, Kael was obsessed with speed and perfection. Example, don't be obsessed with the result, enjoy the process. Number 2, hollowness. Spelling HOLLOWNESS. Hollowness describes a feeling of emptiness inside. In the story we said, a strange hollowness would settle in his chest. Example, money cannot fill the hollowness of a lonely heart. Number 3, barren, spelling Barren. Barren means land that is too dry to produce plants. In the story, the side without water remained dry and barren. Example, without love, life feels like a barren desert. Number 4, to embrace, spelling Embrace. To embrace means to accept something enthusiastically or to hold it close. In the moral, we learn to embrace your flaws. Conclusion. So, the next time you feel broken or inadequate, remember the cracked bucket. Your imperfections might just be creating a garden you cannot yet see. If this story healed a part of your soul today, please subscribe to our channel and like the video to support our journey. Share this with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.